The day after our wedding, my husband was ordered to go on a military expedition. A month later, the news of his death in battle came back. The entire Marquise's mansion was in mourning, and I fainted from grief. The Emperor, in his compassion, sent an imperial physician to check my pulse, only to discover I was already 1 month pregnant. Everyone in the court sighed that heaven always leaves a way out. A few years later, my deceased husband suddenly returned with a woman and a child who was several years old. I happily grabbed the woman's hand. "You must be the paper concubine I burned for my husband." After my husband died, my child inherited his title. He became a marquis right after birth, becoming the youngest marquis in our dynasty. And I, at a young age, became the old madam of the Marquise's mansion, indulging in luxury every day. To alleviate the pain of longing, I would order 2 portions of food every time I went out, with the other portion set aside for my husband. When asked by people, I would say with tears, "In case my husband's ghost wants to have a meal, it is also my duty as a widow to fulfill his wish. I miss you every day, and this is how I alleviate my longing. What is more, I refuse to remarry. I belong to my husband in life, and to my husband in death." Everyone in the capital praised me for my noble purity and loyalty, and the emperor even bestowed upon me the title of a noble lady. I ate double portions of delicious food, occasionally called a few male courtesans from Nanfang to sing. And when I went out, a crowd of people bowed down to greet me. How pleasant. My husband truly died a worthy death. One day, I went out as usual, feeling refreshed, and before eating, I was about to shed a few tears of widow and deceased husband to uphold the virtue of fidelity. And I actually summoned a ghost. A familiar face appeared before me. A ghost. Seeing a ghost in broad daylight, I retreated step by step under the protection of a group of servants. The commotion quickly attracted a crowd, surrounding the cubicle so tightly that no air could get through. Didn't Marquis Zhang die on the battlefield? I even went to the funeral. Lady Zhang cried until she fainted and had to be helped back to her room by her maids. So who is this? Who knows? He has a woman and a child with him. The common folk were gossiping, and many looked at me with a hint of sympathy. Si Nanyi, the man with my husband's face, frowned, and behind him stood a woman and a chubby little boy. "I am back. Why aren't you?" To me, and he glanced at the woman behind him, ready to continue. I cut him off and rushed forward, both surprised and delighted. "I've been offering food and drink as a sacrifice every day. I never thought my husband would actually come back from the dead. Thank heaven, Amitabha." And then I grabbed the woman's hand and spun her around forcefully. No need to say more. "This is the paper doll concubine I burned for you." Right. I didn't expect her to turn out so beautiful. Totally worth the money. I knew this day would come long ago, because I am a reborn person. In my past life, as the daughter of the richest merchant, I married into the Marquis of Dingyuan's estate with a generous dowry, becoming the Marchioness. Who knew that on the 2nd day of our marriage, Jiang Pingyuan abandoned me and went to battle. A month later, news of his death arrived. The entire Marquise's estate was heartbroken, and I was branded as a widowmaker. Zhang Pingshuan, Zhang family's daughter, pointed at my nose and cursed me as a jinx who killed her brother. I bore the accusations and cold stares of everyone in the Marquise's estate, while also having to support my mother-in-law, arrange for my sister-in-law, and use my dowry to fill the Marquise's financial gaps. For years, I walked on thin ice. Only when Zhang Pingshuan got married did my days finally calm down. At this time, Jiang Pingyuan returned, bringing his mistress Song Tingting and their illegitimate child. My sister-in-law said. The news back then was mistaken. Everyone thought brother was dead. Who knew fate would be so kind? Brother was only severely injured and lost his memory, wandering outside for many years. My mother-in-law chimed in. Tinking is a good girl. She preserved the Jiang family's lineage and has served as a wife for you for so long. It is only right and reasonable that she should be given the position of main wife. Then what about me? I looked at this family of ingrates, finding it hard to believe. Ting saved me. So naturally, she comes first in everything. As for you, being given the position of a concubine is not underestimating your efforts over the years. Zhang Pingyuan said from his high perch. As expected of a merchant, with this penny-pinching pheasant attitude. A pheasant is a pheasant, yet you are thinking of becoming a phoenix. Zhang Pingshuan looked at me mockingly. That kid even ran over and kicked me. I snapped and kicked him, flying 3 li away. I've endured humiliation and shouldered this burden for years, and even poured so much money into it. Wasn't it all just so that after you died, I could get a good reputation, become a titled lady, and then adopt a child to enjoy my later years in peace? I spent a fortune investigating the child's age, the corpse that was sent back at the time, the source of the news, the woman's place of origin. All these clues pointed to one conclusion. The Jiang family conspired to have Zhang Pingyuan fake his death after marrying me, just because they looked down on me and also wanted to use my money to cover their debts. You won't let me have it easy, then nobody gets to live. Years of resentment erupted. I am no pushover either. Seeing the blissful faces of the people in front of me, I was overcome with rage. I spent a ton of silver to put them at numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on the Jianggu's kill list. When you cut the grass, you must remove the roots. Not even the children could be spared. In the end, they all died. When the last assassin was killing Zhang Pingyuan, he killed me too while he was at it. Right before I died, I heard him say gleefully, "When you cut the grass, you must remove the roots." The client must not have known that Zhang Pingyuan still had this family member. 5 jobs in a row. Let's throw in one more as a bonus. Friend, you have a bit of a frontier accent. Friend, you are from out of town, huh? I have a grudge against them. I am your client. Friend, you can only get 0 taels now. Heaven never closes all doors. I've been reborn. Reborn on the 2nd day of my marriage. I joyfully started throwing my money around. First, I bribed the doctor who examines me. Then I found a pregnant woman who was giving birth that day. Then I spent some money to place a soft cushion where I fainted that day just in case. And then I bought a few strong and sturdy maids. I even recruited a Granny Wang who had served in the palace and knew how to shift blame and flatter people. Everything is ready, just waiting for the Jiang family to start their mourning. Sure enough, a month later, news of Zhang Pingyuan's death arrived. A corpse with an unrecognizable face was also sent back. The entire marquise's mansion was in a sea of white mourning clothes. On the day of the funeral, many people came to offer their condolences. Jiang Xuan started pointing at me again, calling me a jinx and husband killer. Everyone rushed to console her. "Miss Jiang, isn't this behavior a bit disrespectful to your widowed sister-in-law?" The moment Granny Wang spoke, the place fell silent. "Where did an insolent servant like you come from? How dare you talk back to me?" Granny Wang puffed out her chest. "I was once fortunate enough to serve a noble in the palace, and even there, with the nobles, there was never a rule where a sister-in-law would point and curse at her widowed sister-in-law." Zhang Pingshuan stomped her foot in anger, and I seized the moment to faint. The strong and sturdy maids caught me. The prearranged doctor wiped his sweat and quickly came forward. "My lady is already 1 month pregnant, but you must be careful. The pregnancy is not yet stable, and she must absolutely not experience any major emotional fluctuations." The crowd attending the funeral all gasped in amazement. There is always a way out of trouble. Jiang Pingshuan also stared at me with wide eyes. I leaned weakly in the arms of the strong maidens. Granny Wang seized the opportunity to speak up. Miss Jiang almost angered the marquise's only bloodline to death. With everyone here today, and Miss Jiang being so overbearing, won't the old madam punish her? The marquise's wife, who had been quiet all along, finally raised her head and looked at me. In the previous life, without Granny Wang, some guests also whispered, In order to plan Zhang Xuan's marriage, I cruelly punished her by sending her to a Buddhist temple for a few months. Meeting the old madam's gaze, I smiled and said, "Xuaner is young and usually spoiled, which has made everyone laugh. Please excuse us." I said weakly, "How about making her copy a few Buddhist scriptures? The number of Buddhist scriptures can be many or few, and this punishment is usually used for minor mistakes. This is not intended as a severe punishment." Zhang Pingshuan gave me a smug look, thinking I had softened and didn't dare to punish her. Little did she know, by this time tomorrow, the rumor that Miss Zhang has no manners talked back to her widowed sister-in-law, causing her to almost miscarry, and the family neglected her would spread throughout the city. No matter how much dowry she had, she wouldn't be able to secure a good marriage. The old madam clearly knew this and hardened her heart. "Take Xuaner to the temple on the estate and lock her up for a few months." "Mother." Zhang Pingshuan was being dragged by the servants and unhappily slapped one of them across the face. When I was staying in the palace, I heard His Majesty repeatedly emphasize not to mistreat the servants. It looks like Miss Zhang is quite handy with slapping servants. Granny Wang took her monthly 50 taels and went all out with her verbal attacks. "Wicked daughter." The old madam glared at Granny Wang and me, then turned around beaming to say to the crowd, "My apologies for this embarrassing display. I will be sure to discipline my daughter strictly from now on." Once she had arranged all the matters at hand, the old madam started to question the origin of the child in my belly. "Of course he is the Marquise's child," I said, bursting into tears. "Our relatives and friends are all here today. If you count the days, this child was conceived on the night right before the Marquis left. I have never been involved with any other man. If you don't believe me, Mother, I can only kill myself by smashing my head against this wall." Saying that, I went to smash my head against it. The scene devolved into chaos again, with people trying to persuade me and others trying to stop me. The eunuch sent by the Imperial family to offer condolences accidentally knocked off old Madame Sue's pearl hairpin, and Madame Wu accidentally tore the cloud-patterned brocade of the Chen family's daughter. Let me say something fair. The old madam of the Marquis Manor can't just start smearing someone's reputation with empty words. Madame Wu steadied herself and spoke out for justice. "Yeah, which new daughter-in-law is tormented like this? On the second day of marriage, her husband says he is going on a military expedition, gets cursed at by her sister-in-law pointing at her nose, and her mother-in-law even doubts the origin of her child." Madame Chen looked at me, unable to bear it. When did I ever slander her innocence? My mother-in-law was so anxious that she couldn't even maintain her dignified demeanor, flicking her handkerchief as she looked at me. "Nanyi's death is not worth pitying, but the one in my belly is the Marquis's only heir." I weakly shook my head. "A verbal edict from Her Majesty the Empress." This whole commotion today had long been reported to the palace by the eunuch who came. Jinan Yi, gentle, soft, and virtuous, especially bestowed a stalk of 1,000-year-old ginseng. It is deeply hoped that she takes good care of her health, thus decreed. The people present were all as sharp as a tack. "Her Majesty is telling you to take care of your health and protect the child." "That is right. Go and rest quickly." The old madam knelt to one side, not daring to move rashly. I accepted the stalk of 1,000-year-old ginseng and deliberately dangled it in front of her. A glint of greed flashed in her eyes. Anyway, I wasn't going to eat this stalk of ginseng myself. The next day, during the morning greetings, my mother-in-law, as expected, brought up the stalk of 1,000-year-old ginseng in my possession. "Your little sister-in-law is throwing a tantrum. Her pride was hurt in front of everyone yesterday, so you should comfort her a bit. The manor has also prepared a doctor for you. It is just a stalk of ginseng. Why not give it to Xuaner to nourish her body? The food at the villa is coarse, and her body is weak. It was a personal gift from the Empress. How can it be given to someone else?" I rejected her without showing any emotion. But I knew this mother-in-law of mine would definitely find a way to take the ginseng. Sure enough, Granny Wang came to report before bedtime. The 1,000-year-old ginseng had been swapped out and was now being kept in my mother-in-law's private storeroom. The Marquis Dingyuan's family has held military power for generations. The Imperial family had finally gotten the news they'd long awaited of Lu Pingyuan's death in battle. So how could they genuinely look forward to this child? The ginseng, of course, wasn't anything good either. 10 months later, during my childbirth, I brought back a child from outside the manor. It was Granny Wang who personally found the pregnant woman and personally brought him back. From then on, this child would be the young master I had carried for 10 months and given birth to. That day, the emperor immediately enfoffed this child as the new Marquis of Dingyuan. For how this child was chosen, the imperial family's attitude towards him changed. It has nothing to do with me. Life afterward was very peaceful. It is just that Jiang Pingshuan no longer had the good marriage she had in her previous life. Later, she was taken back home and was no longer arrogant, just looking at me with a half-smile. I knew she was waiting for Jiang Pingyuan to come back. I was waiting too, waiting for him to come back and die. This day arrived quickly, and now I was holding Song Tingting's hand. The concubine I burned for my husband back then was exactly like this. Nonsense. I think you've lost your mind. Jiang Pingyuan abruptly pulled my hand away. I fell to the ground with the momentum. My sincere heart is clear for all to see. How can you say I've lost my mind? Whispers began to spread through the crowd. I think it is the Marquis who has lost his mind. Yeah, coming back with a woman, and who knows where this child came from. The way I see it, maybe this Marquis is a ghost in disguise, and that woman is the ghost of the paper effigy Our Lady burned for him. Stop this nonsense. Jiang Pingyuan looked at me, then at the child I was holding, and said coldly, "Where did this child come from?" He was starting to question Shenner's origin. Shenner was the child I brought back. I actually just casually named him Shenner, because the Empress had gifted me some ginseng. Song Tingting, standing behind Jiang Pingyuan, mouthed 2 words with a hint of mockery. Bastard. Seize this shameless mother and son for me. No one moved. Guards, drag this impostor pretending to be the Marquis away. Right now, my Shenner is the Marquis. If he doesn't acknowledge being Shenner's father, he is not acknowledging that he is the former Marquis Dingyuan. At this thought, I couldn't help but straighten my back and clear my throat. In unison with Jiang Pingyuan, I said, "Guards, arrange for a blood paternity test." Jiang Pingyuan sized me up, with some confusion. "This child, could he really be mine?" he muttered. "Since we're doing a kinship test, then naturally this child must also be tested." My mother-in-law slowly walked over and pointed to the child next to Jiang Pingyuan. Jiang Pingyuan, as if snapping out of a daze, hurriedly pushed the other child forward. "This is mine, and Tingting's child from my time away. We'll do the kinship test for him at the same time and enter him into the family registry." Wang Po spoke quietly. "It is not important whether this child is yours or not. What is important is whether you are the father of our current Marquis Dingyuan." I glanced at Wang Po thoughtfully. Soon, a bowl of clear water was brought up. "Shenner, come." I called my child over, and Shenner obediently walked forward without crying or making a fuss. Jiang Pingyuan also pulled over the boy he had brought. The first to be performed was the blood drop kinship test between Shenner and Jiang Pingyuan. A silver needle pricked a fingertip. 2 drops of blood fell into the bowl, and under the crowd's bated breath gaze, they bobbed about but remained distinctly separate, never merging. "See, I told you he was a bastard." Jiang Pingyuan immediately let out a triumphant shout, his face showing unconcealed ecstasy and contempt. "Ji Nanyi, what else can you say? How dare you pass off a bastard as the bloodline of my Jiang family and usurp the title of Marquis?" My mother-in-law also let out a long sigh of relief and asked snidely, "Mistress Shi, what is your explanation?" Song Tingting even covered her mouth with a handkerchief, letting out a mocking laugh. The surrounding crowd also burst into an uproar, and murmurs immediately arose. I remained silent, my gaze sweeping over their three smug faces, finally landing on that bowl of clear water. This was the moment I had been waiting for. "What is the hurry?" I said lightly. My voice not loud, yet it clearly cut through the clamor of the scene. "Mother-in-law just said she wanted to perform a kinship test for this child." I pointed to the child next to me. "If you want to acknowledge kinship, you have to drip blood." Jiang Pingyuan, smug and self-satisfied, said without hesitation, "Test it then, Ting-Ting. Bring the child over." Song Ting-Ting had a guilty look on her face. "Marquise, there is no need to test Xiaobao, right? You know." I quickly pricked the fat boy's finger, and blood dripped into the bowl. The 2 drops of blood met in the water. They also did not merge. The scene once again fell into a dead silence, even more so than before. The smile on Jiang Pingyuan's face froze. "You found a child. Found a woman who looks a lot like the paper effigy I burned. And with that you dare to come and impersonate the Marquis," I said calmly. "Who gave you the audacity?" My gaze shot straight towards the deathly pale Jiang Pingyuan. "You are not my husband Jiang Pingyuan at all, are you? How could my husband's heroic spirit fail to even recognize his own flesh and blood? This woman and child of unknown origin, you found them to put on an act. Right. You are talking nonsense." Jiang Pingyuan was flustered and angry. "I am Jiang Pingyuan. This blood test method is not necessarily accurate." "Of course it is not accurate. They added something to the water, regardless of whether Shenner is Jiang Pingyuan's child. The blood won't fuse together." "Oh, not necessarily accurate." An authoritative voice suddenly came from the doorway, interrupting Jiang Pingyuan's defense. "The Emperor has arrived." Everyone followed the sound and looked over, only to see that the Emperor had already arrived at some unknown time. The Emperor's might was awe-inspiring and could not be ignored. Everyone scrambled to kneel and pay their respects, shouting, "Long live the Emperor!" The Emperor walked in slowly, his gaze first falling on Shenner and me, with a hint of imperceptible fondness. It seems this child brought back by Granny Wang is not simple. Then, his gaze, sharp as a knife, shot towards Jiang Pingyuan, his voice deep and cold. "Are you truly Jiang Pingyuan? 4 years ago, there was an urgent report from the border. Marquis Dingyuan, Jiang Pingyuan, infiltrated deep into enemy territory and fought bravely to his death. Although his remains were unrecognizable, his sword, armor, and token were all present. I personally verified them, posthumously honored him with great rewards, and the whole world knows. Now you say you are not dead." Jiang Pingyuan broke out in a cold sweat and prostrated himself on the ground. "Your Majesty, please allow me to explain. That year I was only severely wounded and fell off a cliff. Luckily I didn't die." "Amnesia?" The Emperor repeated the word, his tone unreadable. "That is a good excuse. However, a general faking his death to escape is desertion, deceiving the Emperor and the nation, and falsely claiming a Marquis title is a crime punishable by the extermination of 9 generations." With every word the Emperor spoke, Jiang Pingyuan, his mother-in-law, and Song Tingting behind him trembled. "I am definitely not falsely claiming. I am truly Jiang Pingyuan." Jiang Pingyuan was still struggling. "Is that so?" The Emperor's voice grew colder. "Even if you are the real Jiang Pingyuan, not returning after not dying, and hiding your whereabouts for years, is tantamount to desertion. According to the law, what is the penalty? If he admitted to being Jiang Pingyuan, it would be confirming the crime of desertion, a dead end. If he doesn't admit it, then he is impersonating a Marquis, which is a capital offense, caught in a dilemma with no way out." Jiang Pingyuan's face was ashen, his lips trembling, and he suddenly looked at Song Tingting. "Tingting, let's go back first." Song Tingting came to her senses and quickly knelt on the ground. This commoner didn't know. It was this man who claimed to be Marquis Dingyuan and tricked this commoner into coming. "Tingting?" Jiang Pingyuan tried to grab her hand. "How could you say that? I will definitely make a comeback, believe me, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, this subject lost his memory while living among the common folk. I only recently recalled my past and rushed back. I am not a deserter, Your Majesty. Zhang Pingyuan remained kneeling, not getting up. Watching them in this state, I sneered inwardly. The Emperor's gaze fell back on me. The madam is chaste and has done a meritorious job raising her child. Jen will judge this matter fairly. This man's identity is questionable. Take him to the Imperial prison to be dealt with after the truth is investigated. His accomplice shall be taken into custody as well. The guards came forward and dragged the completely limp Zhang Pingyuan and Song Tingting away. Holding Shenner's hand, I respectfully bowed to the Emperor to give thanks. As I stood up, I glimpsed old woman Wang in the crowd giving me a slight nod. This child. His maternal family's surname is Su. After the farce ended, I looked at old woman Wang, who was kneeling in front of me. Madam, this is the son of the late Empress Su. You are indeed wise, madam. Old Madam Su's dealings with the palace eunuch during my fake pregnancy, the Emperor's bestowment of a title. I'll spend a little more money to ask around for some news. If I still can't guess, I'd be a fool, right? You can rest assured, no one can touch your position. I knew that both Zhang Pingyuan faking his death and the adoption couldn't be hidden from the Emperor, who was eyeing Marquis Dinyuan's military power. But I didn't expect he would directly throw his child to me to raise. No wonder he is the Emperor. 1 month later, news came that Zhang Pingyuan and Song Tingting had escaped from the heavenly prison. Rumor has it that it was done by Marquis Dinyuan's men. Some people still consider Zhang Pingyuan their marquis. At the same time, who knows what tricks Song Tingting used, Zhang Pingyuan started to trust her again. The Zhang residence was incredibly lively. Before I got back, Shenner was teasing the kitten I had just bought him. I want to play. The fat boy forcefully snatched it, held the kitten up high, and slammed it on the ground. The kitten let out a miserable shriek. This cat's life is just cheap. Song Tingting covered her mouth and laughed from the side. Just like this little bastard. Shenner, holding the dead kitten, was about to fight the fat boy with the short knife I gave him. But the strength gap was too large. The fat boy pushed Shenner to the ground again. When I returned, I saw Shenner sitting on the ground crying, holding the kitten. The other attendants said they didn't step forward to stop it because of the Grand Madam's orders. The head maid, Ding Xiang, muttered, "It is just a cat. How can it be more important than the second young master's happiness? Who told you he is the second young master?" I looked coldly at the few people in front of me. Ding Xiang stared at me aggrievedly. The Grand Madam said so. Can't you tell who the Marquis is? The Marquis? The Marquis has returned? Ding Xiang smiled mockingly, then turned and tossed out a sentence. Anyway, the Grand Madam said the Marquis has taken a fancy to me. Wang Po had gone out with me and was now furious. She was the late Empress Su's personal handmaiden, and on her deathbed, the Empress entrusted only this child to her. So holding nothing back, she slapped her across the face. If you can't tell who is the boss, then drag her away to have her eyes washed. Just then, the person I sent came back and told me that their family was having a wonderful time together, preparing to eat. I stopped Wang Po and said 2 words. Ginseng. Wang Po came to her senses as if waking from a dream. That poisonous 1,000-year-old ginseng finally came in handy. Seeing that her son has returned, the Grand Madam said she would take out her most treasured item for the whole family to have some nourishment. That ginseng was never given to Zhang Pingshuan in the first place. I let out a laugh. A gift from Her Majesty, the Empress is naturally extraordinary. I just hope they can handle it. The side courtyard soon became bustling with activity. Jiang Pingshuan's voice was full of smugness. Mother, you see, it is a rare treasure from the Emperor after all. This ginseng soup has a clear, bright color and an overwhelming fragrance. It is not something any nobody is worthy of enjoying. Some people, just don't have that good fortune. That is right, Yuan Lang. This ginseng soup is so mellow and sweet. It must be the finest nourishing tonic. She paused, a note of smugness in her voice. And now, thanks to the Marquis, I get to try it for the first time. That fat kid was even more overbearing, yelling, "Delicious, these are all mine. No one is allowed to snatch them." The mother-in-law slowly sipped, putting on airs. After all, it is something from the palace. Naturally, it is not the vulgar stuff that merchant families can produce. You drink more and nourish your bodies well. There will be plenty more good things like this in the future. I listened to the report and burst out laughing. The next day, as soon as it was dawn, the Marquise's mansion was surrounded tightly. Setting aside the fact that 2 escaped convicts were hiding in the Marquise's manor, and both were poisoned. The fact that the Marquise's old madam and Jiang Xuan were poisoned together had already caused widespread gossip. The news quickly leaked, and crowds of onlookers kept coming. At the same time, people from the Dali Temple and the Imperial Medical Office arrived together, and the scene was terrifyingly grand. The Grand Physician examined the leftover soup and the remaining ginseng, his face so grim it could drip water. "This is the rare poison from the western regions, lingering powder. It is incredibly potent. Fortunately, the dose was light, or else it would have been instantly fatal. At the right moment, my body went limp and I could barely stand, relying entirely on Granny Wang's support. Tears started falling at a moment's notice. How could this be? This ginseng was originally gifted by Her Majesty the Empress to me for my pregnancy. I've been keeping it so carefully. So how did it end up in Mother's mouth? And even become poison?" I covered my face. My sobs filled with grief. Could it be that someone hates our Marquise's mansion so much that they want us all dead, and are even trying to exterminate this little bit of flesh and blood I carry? Beside me, Granny Wang beat her chest and stamped her feet, old tears streaming down her face. What a sin. They're trying to wipe out our whole Marquise's mansion in one go. That shrewd Lord Vice Minister from the Ministry of Justice, his gaze as sharp as an eagle's, immediately grasped the key point. "Madam, are you saying this item was originally a gift from the Empress?" I nodded, choking back sobs, playing the part of a terrified, distraught widow to perfection. The investigation of the case went smoothly, progressing faster than anyone could have imagined. The talk on the streets had already shifted from the resurrected Marquise to the bizarre poisoning. All the clues ultimately and glaringly pointed to Cunning Palace. During the morning court session, the Emperor flew into a rage, fiercely throwing the evidence down the steps of his throne. "Good. What a fine mother of the nation you are as Empress. Marquis Dingyuan sacrificed his life for the country. His body is not yet cold, and you already dare to lay your hands on the widow and orphan he left behind. Jiang Qing has been in command of the capital's forces for many years, and his former subordinates are all throughout the army. Is this move of yours meant to wipe out Marquis Dingyuan's bloodline and let your father dominate the imperial court?" The emperor was in love with the former Empress Su, but she was murdered by the current empress. The empress's father and Marquis Dingyuan both held military power and rivaled each other in court. So the emperor couldn't avenge his beloved, and even had to send the little prince born to Empress Seksu away to be raised, to avoid persecution from the current empress. He just so happened to hear about my audacious swap plan, and this prince became my Shenner. Right now, the emperor is vexed about not finding a pretext to clean up the harem and the empress's relatives. This is like getting a pillow just when you are sleepy. The edict deposing the empress was quickly issued, its wording sharp, directly accusing her of plotting against the descendants of meritorious lords, possessing a malicious heart, and being unfit to be the mother of the nation. When the news came, I was by the window, teaching Shenner how to practice her calligraphy. Granny Wang said in a low voice, "News came from the palace, saying that the empress, no, the deposed empress, fainted on the spot when she heard the edict." Holding Shenner's small hand, I steadily drew a horizontal stroke, my tone flat and emotionless. If she knew it would come to this, why did she bother in the first place? After the problem with the Empress Dowager was resolved, it was time for the two fugitives. Except for the deaths of Zhang Pingshuan, the old madam, and the fat boy. The poison in the two fugitives, though not immediately fatal, clung to them like a festering wound, lingering incessantly. Zhang Pingyuan lay on the dilapidated prison bed, his face sallow and his breathing shallow, but he still forced himself to glare at me. I took a cloth soaked in warm water and personally stepped forward, gently covering his mouth and nose with the cloth. Let him slowly suffocate, and just when he is about to die, take the handkerchief away again. This went on until the time he was sentenced to beheading. Song Tingting curled up into a ball from the pain, still frantically cursing me. I immediately grabbed her hand. Little sister really doesn't know how to talk, but that is all right. I'll help you. After signaling with my eyes for a moment, the hand rose and the knife fell. Song Tingting watched in horror as her own tongue fell to the ground. In less than a month, white lanterns were hung one after another in the side courtyard. Once all the dust settled, I immediately submitted a memorial, requesting to leave the capital for an honorable retirement on the grounds of raising a young son, who needs my focused instruction. The emperor was extremely grateful, and with a grand wave of his hand, he bestowed upon me a garden estate in Jiangyan, 1,000 qing of fertile land, and countless gold and silver, and added an imperial edict: the Marquis of Dingyuan is young. The Marquis Manor in the capital shall be temporarily sealed. All his former subordinates shall be placed under the temporary jurisdiction of the Ministry of War, to be returned after his lordship comes of age. With this, the emperor legitimately seized control of the military power of the Dingyuan Marquisate, and felt greatly pleased. He didn't bring Shenner back. Perhaps he wanted him to live a simple life. Perhaps he wanted to make thorough arrangements, fearing that the old subordinates of the Marquis of Dingyuan might harbor resentment and attempt rebellion. And his son Shenner, bound by flesh and blood, even if pushed onto the throne, the imperial bloodline would not change in any way. Who can guess the emperor's thoughts, at least? Our lives can be peaceful for a while. In the bright spring of March, our party took a boat south. Shenner leaned on the ship's railing, gazing at the green mountains on both banks like dark eyebrows, and suddenly turned to ask me, "Mother, from now on, will it just be us?" I pulled him into my arms, smoothed his hair that the wind had disheveled, and smiled. "Yes, it is just us. Does Shenner like it?" He nodded vigorously, his little face showing unprecedented relief. "I like it." Granny Wang handed over a freshly brewed Baluo-chun tea, and looking at Shenner, her wrinkled face broke into a smile. "When the Marquis reaches Jiangyan, he will surely grow stronger." I took the teacup, the steaming heat blurring my vision. Heaven has not forsaken us. Henceforth, the sky is high and the sea is vast.